Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video we are going to practice with and review a little bit how to conjugate regular AR verbs in the present tense in Spanish. So remember, study the topic in your textbook. You can also watch that grammar video, and you can also Google the topic on YouTube and you'll find lots of great videos that describe how conjugating AR verbs in the present tense in Spanish works. So the first thing is, just remember you have to memorize the endings for AR verbs, the endings that go with each subject pronoun. There's no way around it. You just have to do it. So spend a little time memorizing. Then the next thing is you should know the mechanics of conjugating the verb. So it's very simple. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. You start with your infinitive. Then for step 2, you remove the AR ending from the infinitive and you're left with your root. And then in the third step, all you do is just add that ending to the root and then you have a conjugated verb, no problem. Okay, so let's practice a little bit. For the verb hablar with yo, how do you say I speak in Spanish? ¿Cómo se dice I speak? Yo hablo. Yo hablo. Remember, hablar, the H is silent. Yo hablo. Yo hablo. How would you say I speak English in Spanish? Hablo inglés. Hablo inglés. Remember, the yo is not necessary because of the ending. Hablo inglés. I speak English. Hablo inglés. How do you say you speak with using tú? Tú hablas. Tú hablas. You speak. Tú hablas. Remember, this is the informal you that you'll use with someone you know well. How would you make the statement, you speak Spanish? Again, to someone you know well, using tú. Hablas español. Hablas español. You speak Spanish. Hablas español. She speaks. Ella habla. Ella habla. She speaks. Ella habla. She speaks Japanese. Ella habla japonés. Ella habla japonés. She speaks Japanese. Ella habla japonés. This would be a statement. You speak Italian. Would you say you speak Italian? This is the you, the formal you, the polite form of way of saying you. Usted habla italiano. Usted habla italiano. Usted habla italiano. Now, how would you ask someone the question, do you speak English? This would be the question in Spanish, do you speak English? There are different ways of asking the question, but one of the important ways is to invert the subject and the verb. So we'll start with the verb here first. ¿Habla usted inglés? ¿Habla usted inglés? Do you speak English? ¿Habla usted inglés? We speak Spanish. Hablamos español. Hablamos español. We speak Spanish. Hablamos español. They speak Chinese. ¿Cómo se dice they speak Chinese? Ellos hablan chino. Ellos hablan chino. Now we've worked here just with hablar, so now once you know how to conjugate AR verbs, there are thousands of verbs that you could conjugate that are AR verbs in Spanish now. So let's try a different one here. I walk in the park. The verb is caminar. Camino en el parque. Camino en el parque. I walk in the park. Estudiar, to study. She studies biology. Remember, remove the AR and replace it with the ending that corresponds to ella, which is an A. Ella estudia biología. Ella estudia biología. She studies biology. Ella estudia biología. Bailar, to dance. We dance. Bailamos. Bailamos. We dance. Bailamos. Trabajar, to work. They work in a bank. Trabajan en un banco. Trabajan en un banco. They work in a bank. Trabajan en un banco. So now that you know how to conjugate, there's just one more very important thing about conjugating AR verbs in the present tense that you need to know. The other thing that you need to know, aside from the mechanics, how you manipulate the verb to conjugate it, is you need to know that when you put a verb in the present tense, you need to know what it means. And the reason why this is important is because in Spanish, a verb conjugated in the present tense can have more than one meaning, and it just depends on context which meaning is given. So, trabajo en un banco, the question, what does this mean? Trabajo en un banco can mean I work in a bank. It can also mean I do work in a bank. We call this the emphatic do in English. For example, if someone asks you a question that's in the negative, like, you don't work in a bank, do you? And you want to counter it emphatically, you say, I do work in a bank. I do work in a bank. And by the way, in English, whenever we ask questions in the present tense, we always use the emphatic do to ask a question. So we're always saying, do you, does he, does she? We're always asking questions with the emphatic do. So again, trabajo en un banco can mean I work in a bank or I do work in a bank. It can also mean that it's happening right now at this moment. I am working in a bank. So every verb that you conjugate in Spanish in the present tense can have one of three meanings, and it just depends on the situation. It's situational. It depends on the context of that situation, which meaning you'll have there. Okay. So just three more examples here. Estudio francés. What does this mean? Remember, it can mean three things. I study French, I do study French, or I am studying French, just depending on context. Hablan por teléfono can mean, it can actually mean you speak on the phone, or they. I'm going to go with the they meaning here. Hablan por teléfono can mean they speak on the phone, they do speak on the phone, or they are speaking on the phone. And finally, caminan en el parque. Again, I'm going to go with the they meaning here. They walk in the park, they do walk in the park, or they are walking in the park. Okay, so remember there's just two really important things with conjugating verbs in the present tense. Just know, one, you have to know the mechanics. What do you have to do physically to manipulate the verb to get the different inflections, the different forms? And then two, you have to understand that every time you conjugate a verb in the present tense, it can have three meanings. And the meaning that you're using just depends on the context of the situation. So I want to show you a couple more things here as we end. And this is just a little bit of mathematics with your Spanish here. So remember that each thing that you say in the present tense, each conjugated form of the verb can have three different meanings. For example, trabajo can mean I work, I do work, I am working. Tu trabajas, that can mean what? It can mean you work, you do work, you are working. There's three meanings there. Él trabaja can mean he works, he does work, or he is working, and so forth and so on. So these are not all of the forms. We're missing the vosotros here. But let's just go with the number 27 if you add up all these different things that, all these different meanings that you get by conjugating one verb. So if you know how to conjugate one AR verb in the present tense, then you just learned how to say 27 different things in Spanish. Now, if we take 10 different infinitives, if you learn 10 different infinitives and you know how to conjugate them, these are all AR, regular AR infinitives, well, if each one will give you 27 different things, well, that's 270 different things that you just learned how to say by learning 10 different infinitives and knowing how to conjugate AR verbs. So your ability to express yourself in Spanish will just grow exponentially as you learn more AR infinitives. So it's really a great thing to keep learning as many AR infinitives as you can, because you're learning how to conjugate actually the majority of verbs in Spanish. Okay, well, that's it for this video. Remember, if you didn't get them all right in the practice portion, go back to the beginning and keep playing it until you get them all right, and then you've really learned something.